Hey, today I'm going to be talking about autofocus, in particular AFC, because that's the challenge. I'm here to talk about AFC today, and let's get over some technical details. I am using my Panasonic S5. I am using a mic on my shirt today instead of my normal setup, which I should probably talk about one of these days. I am using my Ninja 5 and recording externally. I mention this because it is notable that I think there may be a very tiny advantage to AFC to record externally. Don't quote me on it. It might just be a hallucination on my part. It's very easy to trick yourself into the fact that something is working or being better, and then another day you'll sit there and say, "Nah, I was imagining things. It's not better." So I don't know. It may be. People, if you have an Ninja 5 and you have experience, please share it if you think there may be an advantage there as well when you're not recording internally, that you're just recording externally, that may be giving the camera more power to process AFC, so it does a little bit better. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'm also using my Sigma 45 millimeter f2.8. Kind of testing it out. I will have more to say about it and the pros and cons, because there are definitely pros and cons. But the important thing to know today is I find the autofocus, autofocus in general, is just a little bit slower than, say, my 20 to 60. And that comes into play when you're playing with the focusing speed. We'll get into more of that later. I am at f2.8 because I wanted to have big fat bokeh balls, because when the camera pulses, if you're looking at lights in the background, it kind of sticks out a whole lot more. So it's going to be a good way for us to decide how well this is working or not working, the settings I have. Now, I kind of wasted a day at this because I think the fact that our Panasonics don't focus as well as we might like. They are not at the level that it appears Sony has reached, or even taking a step down, Canon. They seem to be the two ruling cameras in the world of AFC right now. We tend to blame a lot of that on the fact that Panasonic uses contrast autofocus versus phase detection. They claim that we get a better image. I know I like the image that comes out of the Panasonic, that I think it looks really good. So maybe they're totally true. Would it be worth the trade-off to get them phase detect pixels in there? Maybe. Because I could say if Panasonic was at the Sony or Canon levels on AFC, they'd have more than 10% of the market. Right now, they're under 10%. I think it's like 7.57, somewhere there. Kind of low. So they're kind of there with neck and neck with Fuji. Why do I only pick cameras from companies that don't do that well? So I think if they could change that equation, that they would be right up there, competing with the big dogs. But there are a lot of qualities to our Panasonic cameras, so if you are like me, you admire them, and that's why you have a Panasonic versus a Sony or a Canon. So to move on, so I spent about a day, and I think it's important to discuss some of the things about autofocusing and AFC and the custom settings, because we have sensitivity and then we have speed. And sensitivity, when we're using something like object tracking, face tracking, eye tracking, we tend to think of it, or people refer to it as locking on to that object and staying with that object. And I think that's a little bit of a bad way to think of it, because I don't find that to be the truth of the matter. Is it's more like it's telling it that, okay, you have reached focus of my face in this particular space from the lens to me. And it's more about the sensitivity, is it doesn't want to leave that location, so that when I move my head, it's going, oh, I don't believe you, I think you're going to go back. Yeah, I want you to stay right here. I don't want you to move forward. I don't want you to move backwards. I want you to stay right here. So it's going to resist leaving that space, that distance from the camera. And it's not at all about tracking the object. It indirectly is about tracking the object, because if somebody passes in front of me, instead of it going, ooh, what's that, and quickly moving to that different space or that different footage from the camera, it's going to want to stay back here where I'm at. And so you get the impression that it's about tracking that object. And the sad part is that's not really what sensitivity is about. Because in a perfect world, if it could better identify faces, it would be more apt to stick with faces that look the same, and somebody coming into view wouldn't have an effect as much. And again, because now when we think about the other part, we have speed. Well, when I'm object tracking, I shouldn't really actually have to think about speed at all, because I would want the camera, in an ideal world, for me to sit there and say, here's the object, follow it, go as ever fast as you need to. If you need to go slow, go slow. If you need to go fast, go fast. Stay attached to that object. But like I said, it's not exactly how it works. And so that's why we have this little juggling act between sensitivity and speed. So today I'm going to address this situation, whereas relatively static. This would be like an interview situation. I am interviewing somebody. They're standing there. Hopefully they're not going back and forth, because like with these with these settings, I can talk. I'll display. I have set them hopefully in a manner that has the least amount of pulsing, but when I move, it takes a while to catch up with me, because I have the settings set. So one, it doesn't want to leave where it's at. Doesn't want to move the lens from the set distance. And two, I don't want it to do it very fast. And that combination hopefully is going to give me very little pulsing in back. So, what are my settings? And again, keep in mind, and this is where speed comes important, the lens I'm using is the Sigma, and like I said, it is slower than my 20 to 60. So I have it set at, I believe it is -1 in sensitivity and 0 on speed. So those settings hopefully are going to give me next to no movement in the back. and this is also where it sucks, because if whatever I'm looking at gets up and starts to move and I want to follow it, the settings that were good to stop me from pulsing are going to be no good for a person, object, car, whatever on the go, because then I need to change my settings, and there is no, I don't believe there's any quick way. I don't think you can put it on a button and have it jump to a different settings, like sit there and say, which would be nice if you could. I have to look. No, I don't think you can, uh, because then you could sit there and say, "Oh, okay, the nature of the object has changed, so let's change the things." What I'm hoping someday is the cameras will become better at grabbing and holding on to an object. We won't have to worry about speed, because it'll do whatever it has to do to keep up with that object. But we will still have a speed setting, but that speed setting will only be for those times when we want to, say, tap on one object, then tap on a background or a foreground object, and creatively control how quickly it changes focus. So that's the future I want to see. If I'm in tracking, turn off speed. I shouldn't even have to think about it. Right now, we have to, because we got that balancing act between sensitivity and speed to not get pulsing in our Panasonic cameras. So we need to understand what the system's doing and try to find the best settings for the moment, like an interview, and then the lens, because some lenses are faster than others. So that all fits into that little equation you have to run in your head to figure out how to set your camera up. And probably not what you want to hear. We're all waiting for the perfect system where I could sit there and say, track this object. And wouldn't it be amazing if it has like the power to sit there, especially if you could like sit there and do a rotation and go, okay, here's the head. And then you could say, okay, that's Scot. And you could say, instead of face to text, sit there and say, track Scot. And then you would sit there and say, yeah, I know what that face looks like at different angles, and I'm always going to stay on Scot, because that's what you told me to do. And then maybe you have other candidates, if you're doing something professionally, where you have, Fred and Alice, and you could put them all in there, and then track Alice, and then have it, move over. But we're talking fantasy now, because it doesn't exist. But that's what the world of AI is about. If we can get to the point where we get the kind of processing power in here where we can sit there and have this, because it exists. We can sit there and have things look at our pictures and go, oh, there's a picture of Alice, and there's a picture of Scott, there's a picture of Fred, and then you can sit there and say, hey, show me all the pictures of Alice, and boom, they're there. So the technology exists. Getting that into a camera and getting it so that you can train your camera to know who people are, that would be cool, wouldn't it? But again, I digress. We're not there. So, what kind of settings have I used here? And I can't tell, and I'm really hoping that these settings will be good. I am using -1 on sensitivity and 0 on speed. So let's go to the computer, and we're going to take a look at this and see if these are the good, what I would call interview settings for the Sigma f2.8 lens at f2.8. And then we'll talk about it from there. Okay, I looked at it. Again, from my experiences the other day, I originally thought 0 was the sweet spot, but no, you get too much pulsing. This -1 setting, almost there. I could live with that. The amount of pulse, because you're going to have some. Because if you're moving, you're at f2.8. And again, if you set it down lower, you move, you're going to have pulsing. I mean, that's just a fact of life, because literally, if it is tracking you, it is going to. So if I'm sitting here doing this, it's going to have to do some degree of pulsing. Now, in this case, I actually set it to -2, which is one up from the slowest sensitivity. Left the speed where it was at. So let's play a little bit at this setting. One, let's see how it acts. And then after we think we got enough stagnant time, whatever, we'll play with it a little bit before we close this up. But I think these settings are showing that you can pretty much, for this situation, interview situation, you can get pulsing down to a minimum, so you don't have to worry about it. And again, I'm not going to come back and talk about it, but you'll get to see, is this any better than what we had before the break and before I came back. And I'll leave with you. Maybe I'll put a comment down below. But I think we had enough of me staying relatively still. Now let's see what the repercussions are of going to -2. So say if the speaker was to lean in, not an unheard of, or to go, well, when I was a kid, blah, blah, blah. Type of things that could happen in an interview, depending upon what kind of interview situation that is. Some people are animated, some people are not. Some people are blah, 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 and they don't move. Wouldn't that be a joy? Except for being as boring as hell. Animated people are more fun. But yeah, so if somebody's moving around and they're doing a lot, there's going to be a repercussions to slowing it down this much. So that's it. That's what this video is about. Probably went a little bit long. Sorry for that, but I think this is an important topic for our Lumix cameras as they exist now, to really understand the focus. I wouldn't have done it. As in all these, I make no money. Whether I say something good or bad about a company, there's no influence. I wish there was. I could use some free stuff. But if you'd like to help me and encourage me to do more of these, I have a link down below where you can donate, and anything you might want to send my way to help me buy a Christmas coffee or something would be appreciated. I am trying to build the channel, so please, if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. I need to get to a certain level before I can even think about trying to put affiliate links down below. But the beauty is, I have absolutely no motivations to say good or bad things, and probably even if I got to the day where I could try to shill and get you people to hit likes, I probably wouldn't, because it's not my nature. It's why I'm not rich today, and probably won't get be rich in the future. But I do these for myself, and by sharing, hopefully you either learn something, or you go, God, that asshole just wasted my time. So see you next time. Bye.